not sure how much I will add or I won't. I might start pulling pieces out and adding it to my Patreon, which I'm still setting up. I hope you'll come and join us there. I believe you can subscribe even before I put up any subscription amounts, and and I think I'll definitely keep a pocket open of just free stuff. But since I do most of my free stuff on here, um, I don't know. I'm enjoying playing with the dimension of Patreon, and that's where I thought to start this new content about social media, which I want to give big props to Divine Maverick, as it was in her Patreon that we got onto talking about the subject. And it's funny because, like, I do like to talk about the stuff that I know. Maybe it's a Capricorn thing, maybe it's just a me thing. I don't know. I like knowledge. And what's funny is, like, I feel like there's the ego side of my brain saying, like, I don't like to be a know-it-all. Nobody likes to be a know-it-all. But actually, I do. I very much enjoy knowing a lot of things. I don't enjoy knowing everything. I actually don't. If you become a person who knows a lot of things and you can predict a lot of things, there is there's a lot of joy to it, but there's also a lot of contrast to it, especially, if you pull in people around you who have not yet developed a love for learning and wisdom in its own right, just for the joy of it. And, sometimes you got to go through that healing. In any case, I got brave and said, when somebody mentioned that they'd like some help with social media and things like that, that, hey, I got the data if you want that data. And it feels fun to me to be able to look at, like, I think about when I was in school and looking at the history books and being like, oh, that's a thing in history that happened. I really love history too. Not all of history. I love the history that calls to me, but I love how there are these different pocket dimensions throughout history of things that happened. And in the past, reading about them, especially when I fell down the Wikipedia rabbit hole, was wondering what it was like to be a person in those pocket dimensions and experiencing that thing. And then getting to, especially those that, well, not just those that became, like, I want to say relevant, but also they became well known throughout history, like what the experience was like for them, but also what was the experience like for those that nobody documented or that very few knew about, or even those who were well known but only by word of mouth, like various different things like that. And it's one of those moments where I get to say I got to I get to live through several pocket dimensions of history that we've gone through. The early Craigslist, early social media, then social media marketing, and like how the Seattle music scene was changed and affected by wider stuff with the Great Repression, and going through different waves of energy and how we advertise, how we are, like, going from entrepreneurs to socialpreneur, things like that, like going through these little pocket dimensions. And social media was one of my favorites. Like, I'm definitely a social type. I'm still, what do they call it? I'm an extroverted introvert. I like my alone time. I like time with myself. I enjoy time recharging with spirit, but I also really like to be social. I like to interact with people. And social media was a really wonderful portal for me. It has been a wonderful portal for me. And especially when it was in the beginning, because I've always kind of been a creature of, like, ooh, let's explore that. How many things can we do that? I really loved when I got into the pocket world of Xbox video game testing, because that was so me. Like, the whole point of the job that I did was to go in and try to intentionally break the game so that other people could go in and fix that stuff so that the game had really good integrity. And I feel like that's a really good example and metaphor of some of the magic that I have, is like that ability to go in and break the game in various places. But it's not a bad thing, because every time you see a place where there's a break in the game or a glitch or a thing that should not exist there, you get to decide, do I want to fix it? Do I want to leave it? And if you want to fix it, then you can keep going. Um, it's funny to think about that as a superpower, but I just love it. In any case, social media is similar. And I'm excited to do this series because it's twofold. It's to talk about social media for divine feminines, divine masculines, anybody, magical people, muggle, non-magical people. I don't know what you want to go with. Um, Anybody can get into this, and it's also to encourage the delightfulness of seeing things that you want to do rather than like, I don't know. I feel like that we have this flat melted pot. So it's from people doing the melting pot intention. Like everything is melted together, and so it seems like the dream to have a big house, big car, big, white picket fence, and all those things. They all seem like mishmashed together in one dimension where they all exist. When it's a lot easier to process them in the mind, and it makes life feel more magical if you think of them kind of as pocket worlds, or pocket dimensions. They're these places that you can go to have various different experiences. Which reminds me of a dream that I had that was something like that years and years ago, though I'm not gonna go through all of that dream here, but thank you for that nugget spirit. In any case, social media itself, what growth? I mean, it's almost like watching my kids grow up in a way, and also watching how I grow up in interactions with my kids, but then apply it to social media. And so this is going to be kind of a primer, and it's like, what is the dimension of social media? What is this pocket world that we talk about? That if you want to have this experience, you want to be able to utilize the energy to glow up, to build a business, to make more friends, to just have fun, like whatever reason. It's good to approach it like most things and figure out what's your intention. Like, what's the thing that you want to do with it? Especially because social media, the main thing about this dimension and knowing how to navigate it is knowing that it is social. So it is the place where, what do you call it? The court of public opinion exists, and you can exist in it as an individual who doesn't ever fit in with the court of public opinion, or you can join the court of public opinion in different ways. You can bend it around. You can follow it exactly as it is. Like there are rules, but there really aren't rules, and that's kind of a hard thing to understand. And the reason there aren't rules is because it's based on human social existence, and we are constantly growing and evolving and doing like up cycles of old cycles to learn various things, karmic lessons, stuff like that. So it's always evolving. So like at any given time there are rules, and then those rules later they change. And what's funny is you can almost, like, anytime, let's say with like Facebook, when they do one of their infamous updates that like changes everything the way that you were used to it and stuff, like those are kind of markers of when the collective of Facebook is like, I want to say up leveling. And if you think about it, it's not always a giant change or not always a big leap, but like it's still an up leveling. So sometimes they're slow updates and sometimes they're big updates. Either way, we we interact with each other and create this growth through all these different things that we do in social media. And so if you think about that as being the main purpose of social media, is growth with others, right? So if you approach it from that angle, then when you go into it, think of it as like, if you're going into, like, what do you want to go in to learn? I was just thinking about, like, if you were going to do, let's say, like a spell or something like that, or you were going to do a ceremony where at the beginning you got to pick something that you wanted to work on healing or experiencing or observing or whatever it is, and at the end you would get that experience. It's just like setting a goal. So when you go into social media, what is it that you like in that pocket world? What do you want to learn? How do you want to grow? Who do you want to interact with? These are things that have naturally occurred, and it's the whole thing of like friending and unfriending and poking and groups and stuff like that. This is what's funny is, like, social media is one of it's a good example of a pocket world that has like infinite pocket worlds in it. And I think that's a really fun way to look at it, because like, you've got the dimension of your own wall, and you've got the dimensions of an infinite groups. And if there aren't groups there that are what you want, that are not like what would you call it? So if it's a pocket dimension, then the subdimension of that pocket dimension. If there isn't one of those that exists that you want to experience, you can make one. And here's the funny thing too, is the only real secret to something like that is you set your intention, you make the group, you add a few things to it, and then you just leave it be and let it ripen. And like I've done that with a few different groups. One of my most popular ones, which is up and down in activity and usefulness still, but it's the Washington State, or sorry, Pagans, Fairies, and Witches of Washington. And it's a really, really, just a second, I need you to be real quick. What do you need? Yes. Ta-da, have fun. It's well, I mean, it's exactly what it says. It's a group for those that are in there, and it's welcome to anybody. But the focus is on, the non-Abrahamic pagan religions. And we actually, I think I expanded it to Northwest because we were noticing that we had folks from Oregon and Idaho who were wanting to join and stuff. So we did that, and it's a really nice dimension in there. It's a lot calmer than I expected it, but I think that's a nice draw in energy for that. There's not a whole lot of political talks in there, and when I made that group, I really specifically wanted a sub-pocket dimension that did not have the existence of tons of spammers and things like that. And I made some other groups that are similar to things like that. Sensible Libertarians was another interesting one, and that one also was, oh man, talk about sub pocket dimensions. That one was meant to be a group where anybody could have their opinions, though it was like non-reactionaryism. It was like, let's look at all data and all things and find a sensible place to meet in the middle, and like no bashing of anybody, no chasing straw men nonsense, things like that. And then another one that I had was like Take It Outside Washington or something like that. And that was a group where people could just go to do like knockdown, drag out verbal fights, right? Like on whatever political issue they wanted. It got started when 502, the Washington's first medical marijuana initiative, got brought up. Well, not medical marijuana; it ruined the medical industry. But there was, there was a lot of things going on, and I was in a lot of sub pocket worlds in there, or dimensions in there, and I noticed that like some of us, I would say all of us at some point want to just fight with people, and we don't make it okay anywhere. And I think that's part of the reason why we then get to a place where we are having these knockdown, drag out verbal fights with people that we actually want to have genuine discussions with. And so I made this group as kind of like a verbal sparring group. It's not as active as it was. It was very active for a couple of years. A lot of people really liked it, and I really picked I picked players that I saw that were really like their data was super, super good. They were like the heavyweights of whatever their picked argument was. And oh man, it was great. And, so I mean, Facebook as an example, right? You've got a pocket world, and let's call it a pocket world, and then it's got all its sub pocket dimensions in it, and there's different things, pages, groups, things like that. And if you go into, let's say, if you go into the dimension of Facebook and you want to get more focus on your business or your YouTube channel, what you've got to recognize is that these dimensions were cultivated to be this interesting, like, juxtaposition between, like, how do you even put it? Like, it's supposed to be kind of telemarketer free. And those that try to go in, I've seen it happen so many times. I've experienced it myself too. If your intention is to go in and like get followers or likes or people that want to pay you money for things, you're going to butt heads in there so much, at least right now. It didn't used to be that way before. It's like, when people first started using it for business, I was one of them. It was actually super awesome for it, especially networking, because it was called social networking at first for a reason, because it was meant to go and have in-person activities with other people. And At least that was the sub dimension of it in terms of the business sense, and there was always people who you could find that liked it. But once it got saturated and then people started figuring out bots and things like that, and then group after group got inundated with just there was no social interaction. It became very LinkedIn like, and LinkedIn now, which is another pocket world that was really fun for a while until it became only about business. Now its intention was business. You can still use it for business, and it's attracted people who like that dimension. Like if they just want to be able to look for ads and look for jobs and post jobs and things like that, it's very pointed and focused. You can actually go in there and find some really cool like sub pocket dimensions in there, like for tarot readers or for twin flames or things like that, and you can create new ones. So I mean, if you feel like you want to be one of those adorably rebellious individuals who brings something into a pocket world that did not exist before, and you want to create a new like sub dimension in there, go for it. It's actually quite fun. But so like when you go into things like Facebook though, or Twitter, or Instagram's a little in there. It depends on the pocket world, but something like Facebook, a lot of people go at it now, and they're still trying the same tried and true methods that existed in the beginning and that existed before social media existed. It's very like Amway, MLM sort of thing, and sure, you can get people in there. I mean, to be honest, you can use any method that you like. If you are solid in your self-love and self-worth, and you have you have a good core there, and you know your value, you're going to attract people no matter where you are, that are going to they're going to pay you for whatever, or do the thing that you want. If you feel good about it and you're good at vibration, and you show them that you're trustworthy, you're going to get it. Though I'll tell you, like, for those that go at an experience of going through social media, at least in my experience, it's much more about the learning you can get along the way, or at least maybe that's a better way to go at it. Like, don't go into social media trying to have a way to measure your success, because there's too many reasons why that becomes problematic. And don't go into it with the like, I'm gonna make this much money a month if I can find this many people a month from this sub pocket world in Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest or whatever, right? Like, go into it finding a way to feel joyful about what you're going to get to learn along the way about yourself and about people in this dimension of bringing in your business into it. Like, go into it in that aspect. And it's a really great place to have as a mirror of any shadow work that you need to work on, that helps you level up your business and helps you glow up. In fact, that would be a great intention if more people thought of it that way. Like, go into Facebook and social media of that sort of nature, and go into it in a place of like, my my intention is to have revealed to me the recognition of what's really holding me back from being a very super successful person, and like having a blast while I'm doing it. Because that's something that Facebook can most definitely show you, and very quickly. And if you can quickly get through that shadow work, and then you can get back to focusing on the business that you really love and doing the things that you really love, right? Now, that's an example, some examples of the different ways that there are kind of these pocket worlds, and that have sub dimensions in them. Now, each one, so there's so many things that I think I want to space out into different videos. I wanted to address, like, some people feel like they have to be on all the social medias. No. In fact, what I'm going to say is, so I'm the type of person that I like to explore different social medias, and there's so many of them now that we have smartphones and iPhones and stuff. I like to just go in and see what it's about. Okay, all right, get the data, and if I like it, I stay. If I don't like it, then I'm like, nah, it's not worth the memory on my phone, because there's so many of them now, like supply and demand of it. You don't need to have the extra ones. And this is why it's important to think of it in two ways. One, you want to pick the social medias that you enjoy being on. if you like getting on Instagram and you like the way that it's more about pictures, you can post something instantly. There's filters in there if you like. You can now do Instagram Live. If you like that sort of thing and you really dig like the hashtag stuff and just the way that that dimension exists, it's very visual, it's very storyteller. If you like that, then that's a really great media for you to start getting into your business about. And the other reason it's important that you pick something that you like is that the entirety of the dimension of social media is where you find people want to know about you as a person, even if they don't like consciously know that. Like it's a testing ground of integrity and rapport and connection in the dimensions that it's in. And because of the energies we have going on right now, and then also just who and how we are as humans, is that we test each other for genuineness and integrity and things like that, morality and stuff like that. And we seek to connect with others in these dimensions of social media to experience both the sense of community and being surrounded by people that we really feel like we resonate with, feel like they love us and we love them. And then we also do it to experience the contrast of like measuring ourselves up to those that we feel like are in an opposing energy to us, and learning to coexist in those situations. So when you go into social media, if you go into it trying to be a false person, not like you're trying to con anybody, but if you try to go into it, not try. I'm just going to say, when you go into social media, if you're still in a state where you don't feel comfortable talking about who you are, why you are, how you are, and that you've got really good self-worth in there, then that's going to be tested. That's the first thing. Most folks that are not successful on social media, it has very little to do with the tactics they may be applying in a literal sense. It's more about the way that they're thinking about themselves and that they're thinking about what social media is. And if you got challenges with self-worth, they're going to become apparent in there. It's going to kick up. You're going to be focused on the analytics, or how many likes, or how many followers, or how many comments, kind of thing. And then you get stuck in a loop of observing the lack of what you thought you would have there, and then taking that as a personal self-worth hit, that maybe because you didn't make a certain amount of money that you're not worth that much money, or maybe you should readjust your prices, or maybe you're doing something wrong, when most of the time it's just collective silliness, you know. And so like loops like that can come up. It can actually deters a lot of people from using social media, because like it does have a lot of loops in it. And if you don't have a good sense of who you are and where you exist in your map of reality, it's going to pull you into every single one of them until you go, oh, duh. Like, I'm letting myself go into all these dimensions, just pretty much anyone that pops up in front of me. But, going into that, you can use that to do your shadow work, to work on your self-worth stuff. And then when you start to glow up in that, like going through your shadow work and moving up through it and learning and sharing what you're learning, other people see you grow. And then other people want to be a part of your journey, especially because a lot of them, in some big or small way, start to, we got a spider. Hello. Goodbye. I always feel bad when I have to like put something outside. I'm the type, I don't like to kill things. But when I need to get it off me, sometimes I will, like, either I'll drop it out the window or I'll flick it if I have to, real gently. I always worry about, oh crap, like, I hope that fall wasn't terrible, or I hope they had like a web parachute or something. Like, oh no. Prayers to the spider. It's a great creator energy. And it also does link to social media. It's a lot of webs, it's a lot of links, it's a lot of threads that all come into each other. So if you go into it and you share your journey of glowing up and growing up, that removes that element of trying to pretend to be something you're not. And the funny thing is, I mean, you can go into it and try to pretend to be somebody that you're not, and things that you're not, that you want to be, or that you think the court of public opinion wants you to be, and that's fine, because when if you change it over, so if you have if you have social media already and you've got personal space in it, use that personal space. Like, we're in an age where nobody's information is truly private or able to be, like, even those who are complete hermits and off the grid, nobody's information is safe. We might as well just not focus on that, because it's a way to keep us stuck in a loop that keeps us out of good energy. It's weird. See, like, even talking about it gets into that kind of energy. It's halting, right? Don't let those kind of things halt you. There's, the good and bad of you is wonderful, and people nowadays, it's funny, we're so close and yet we're so far away from each other. That part of why social media was created, and some of the most successful people with it when it comes to the business subdimensions of it, they're successful because they share their real story, because that's what people want to see. YouTube is another pocket world in the dimension of social media, where people more often than not come in there to see real, genuine stories. Like, yeah, there's movies, there's gurus, there's people who have everything polished and pressed, but time after time after time, you'll see that most people want to see real stories and genuine people, because we feel more connected. We feel like if I tell a story that you feel like resonates with your story, then you don't feel quite as alone. And if you see me getting up there and do it, like throwing out what I'm going to do, and then how many things I actually accomplish, and going through all the motions and emotions, you might feel brave enough to take a step like that yourself, and then you help other people do that same thing. That's part of at least the current point and purpose of the YouTube pocket world, right? Now, it's difficult because nobody's really written the map in this way. It's not difficult. It's delightful to be here, finding the right words and threads to be able to describe my experiences of this, and to be able to create a new way to look at and approach, like, everything that we do, in kind of a divine comedy sort of way. So if you have any specific questions, or if you can see some of the threads in this information that I put out, and you're like, hey, that would make a really great, like, step 1 is blah, 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 step 2 is bleep, 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 right? Then go ahead and throw it down there. Or use it if you want. I have no problem with anybody using anything that I say on here. I've far gotten over the need for credit about most anything. It doesn't matter, as long as people are using it to enjoy themselves. And I mean, I hope nobody uses it for bad, but at the same time, I think that would just be cute, because I don't know, I live in a dimension where good always overcomes. And yeah. All right, everybody, I'll see you in the next video. I'm not sure when I'll do the next one for this series, but I'm always on here talking about something, so I'll see you later.